Imagine if you created a company that faked a lot of their claims openly to pump up their stock price to then basically screw over thousands of people and basically try to raise as much money as possible at the same time. So, the founder of the electric truck startup, Nikola, has been charged with fraud, lying to investors. So let's get into the story. But here's the thing. This is basically a warning of why you typically should not be getting into individual stocks because of things like this. So Trevor Milton, the founder of electric truck startup Nikola, was indicted Thursday on charges of lying to investors by, among other fraudulent claims, pushing a truck down a hill to pretend it was fully operational. So Milton repeatedly lied about the capabilities of his company's electric trucks, and after the company went public, he doubled down on lies in a bid to push the share price up, prosecutors alleged Thursday. Now here's the thing, right? He could actually have done this the correct way and basically did almost like a vlog type of thing or like a live stream type of things. Like, hey, these are the things that we're working on. If anybody wants to join our team to like work on these specific issues that we're having, come on, join in, apply, that kind of stuff, right? And this is what we're trying to do. We're failing right now, but we're working on these projects right now, and we see high hopes for this. If he did something like that, people would respect it more because at least he's honest, right? But this one was like a blatant, basically, lie. So Milton also allegedly lied when he insisted on Twitter that one of Nikola's trucks was being built entirely with the company's own proprietary technology, when in fact it was using parts from suppliers in Michigan and Europe. It was basically just kind of like rebranding it. So this is a very straightforward case. Milton told lies to generate popular demand for Nikola's stock. The U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss told reporters at a press briefing Thursday. And among the lies Milton told investors were claims he made about the Nikola One, a semi-truck prototype. According to the indictment, prosecutors said Milton knew the prototype did not work and didn't even have its own internal power source, but repeatedly called it fully functioning. And again, here's the thing, right? Like, is one thing to like over exaggerate a claim is a completely different thing than blatantly lying multiple times about like specific claims. So prosecutors said at the 2016 unveiling of the truck, Milton made categorically false claims about the truck, even though he'd been warned by the company's chief engineer that the truck was not even remotely ready to operate. At the time, the truck could not even be driven, and it couldn't even turn on unless it was plugged into a generator or wall, prosecutors said, and the dashboard, which Milton pretended to use to start the truck at the event, was an off-the-shelf tablet not actually connected to the vehicle system, the indictment said. Basically saying, like, they didn't even try to fake it well. So when he was confronted by media reports last year about his alleged fraud at the 2016 event, Milton took to Twitter and financial outlets and doubled down on his prior deceptions, prosecutors said. So after a series of tweets in which prosecutors said Milton deceptively lied about the preparedness of the truck in 2016, Milton allegedly texted a number of Nikola's board and said, "Share value went up after my response," according to the indictment. And in another episode outlined by prosecutors, Milton attended a commercial shoot for Nikola in which they made the Nikola One truck appear to be functioning when it in fact was simply rolling down a hill. That allegation was among those outlined in September by New York-based short seller Hindenburg Research, which basically broke it down step by step where he completely lied. So Nikola denied the allegations at the time, but Milton resigned from the company shortly after, and then Milton also repeated various other lies about the company's products and contractual agreements with partners on his own social media, with the apparent attempt to boost the company's stock price and thereby his own fortune prosecutors alleged. So the indictment said Milton either knew he was overstating and lying about the company's operations or that he was negligent to make the claims he did. So Milton faces 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of wire fraud, according to the indictment. Now, here's the thing, right? You gotta be very careful when it comes to like the SEC and all that kind of stuff, right? Trying to make like claims that are completely 100% false, especially with someone in like his position, because look, they're going to go after him, right? And with such a clear-cut case of like straight up lying to thousands of investors that lost a crazy amount of money, he could probably be spending, honestly, like 10 plus years in prison for something like this. So he pleaded not guilty on Thursday and was released on bail of $100 million that was secured by a pair of unidentified financially responsible people, along with 2 multi-million-dollar properties in Utah that Milton owns. So Trevor Milton is innocent. This is a new low in the government's efforts to criminalize a lawful business conduct, and every executive in America should be horrified, a spokesperson for Milton's legal team said. From the beginning, this has been an investigation in search of a crime. Justice was not served by the government's action today, but it will be when Mr. Milton is exonerated, they added. So here's the thing, right? The problem with his situation is that he, at multiple times, at multiple places, had made multiple claims that were 100% false and that were proven to be false. So it's going to be very hard for someone in his situation to really be, let go on like a slap of a wrist, right? I don't think it's going to end that sweetly. I think it's going to be actually really bad for him because it's just so blatant of basically a pump and dump. So the Securities and Exchange Commission also filed civil securities fraud charges against him on Thursday and asked the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of New York to permanently bar him from acting as an officer at any publicly traded company. And in a statement, Nikola noted that today's government actions are against Mr. Milton's individually and not against the company. So investor interest in Nikola began to grow in 2020 when it touted its plans for a pickup truck and tractor-trailer cab powered by hydrogen fuel cells. The company went public in June 2020 through a merger with a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC, and in September, General Motors announced a $2 billion deal acquisition of a stake in Nikola. Now here's the thing, too, right? If I remember correctly, General Motors actually pulled out of the deal because they basically discovered that the founder was blatantly lying constantly to the point where they couldn't actually do something with the brand. So again, at one point last summer, Nikola's valuation surpassed Ford, one of the country's biggest automakers, topping $31 billion before falling again. So yeah, this is the thing. This is like kind of like an interesting part about all of this, right? It's like you literally got this company, right, that hasn't produced a product, right, that is worth more than Ford, okay? They're worth on paper more than Ford, who makes a massive amount of vehicles for corporations and individuals, right? Who also sells the most popular vehicle in America, which is, I believe, the Ford F-150, right? You have a company that does all these crazy sales that are actually producing electric, like fully electric cars like the Mustang Mach-E, right? And also, the new Ford Lightning thing, right? That's an electric truck, right? I am shocked that Ford isn't worth more than it is right now, right? Because they're actually producing electrical versions of their vehicles now. And you have these like startup companies that are like trying to be like the Tesla, defeater, right? But they're not going to be, right? Like the only companies that can really beat Tesla are the massive corporations, the massive car companies like Ford, like GM, right? Like Porsche, like Volkswagen, right? Like those, because they have the capabilities when it comes down to an infrastructure and output point to actually get massive amounts of electric vehicles onto the road, right? Like those are the only companies that can really compete with Tesla when it comes to electric vehicles, right? And if there's like an electric charging network across the whole nation of America, right? Guess what? Tesla's market share is going to dramatically decrease, right? And Ford and Mercedes and all these other different car companies with all these different options are going to increase their market share, right? Because they're just going to have either better quality because they have so much experience building an actual car compared to Tesla, right? But, Teslas look cool, right? They're super fast, but the quality still isn't there compared to other vehicles. And so if you have these other car companies that are actually skilled in producing vehicles that people actually like riding in, guess what? Tesla's going to lose some market share, and companies like Nikola are basically have like no future. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. But I don't think Trevor Milton is going to have a slap on the wrist. And this is also why you should not really be focusing on single stocks for the most part, right? But, if you have your financial foundation set up in place to a good point, then you technically could, and you can make a bet on Nikola, but you could lose money. But you'll be in a position where it doesn't actually affect you. So if you need help with mastering your money, and that means getting out of debt, creating an emergency fund, and putting money into investments to where you can start living a life that you want to live, go down below and check out 40inbox.com and learn the secret to mastering your money. Because if you basically put your money, like let's say like someone while he was doing this put like $100,000 into his stock, because some people actually did that. Some people put like six figures into a stock that he was trying to pump up, right? Which meant that they could have lost basically half of their money, right? So $100,000 could have easily been to $50,000. Well, if you follow basically what's inside what we teach people, you'd focus a little bit more on like index funds, on mutual funds, and you'd be up pretty darn well right now instead of basically losing half of your net worth if you were to just buy a single stock like Nikola. So we'll see you in future episodes.